I've noticed that my airflow has been a little weaker lately. I've had to turn it up more than usual. And so that is a sign that my venting system needs to be cleaned. And so today here at the Virtual Coffee Lab, it's vent cleaning day. Stick around. All right, thanks for joining me today and welcome to the Virtual Coffee Lab. Not every home coffee roaster has a venting system that they need to be concerned about. It could be a hood fan, or it could be something as elaborate as this, which is connected to my drum roaster. And so if you don't have a vent, this is still something that you may be interested in, because if you're thinking of getting a drum roaster or if you're using a hood fan, there's some things you need to know about as far as the air that you are venting out of your house. So when we roast coffee, we are roasting with heat. There are gases or fumes, there are oils, and there's smoke. And all of that gets pushed out of our roasting environment outside if we have a venting system, if we're using a fan or a hood fan. With a drum roaster, the venting system is an integral part of the airflow system of the roaster itself. On this roaster, we have air that's pulled into the system, and it goes up into the drum, and it circulates, and it is roasting the coffee using convection. 70% of drum roasting is convection roasting. 30% is conduction roasting, where the beans are touching each other, they're passing heat to each other, or they're touching the steel wall of the drum. So if you have an air roaster, it's 100% convection, but a drum roaster is 70% convection. And so we use air just like you are to roast the coffee, and we use air a little differently, but we're moving hot air through the system to help promote the roasting process. When we do that, it's venting out of the system as well, and it goes through a main tube, through the motor right here, and then pushed into the chaff collector, and then out through the venting system. And so the fumes, the smoke, the chaff, all of that is going through this system, and eventually there is residue that is going to need to be cleaned and degreased or degunked. And so that's what we're going to do today. The airflow system on a roaster is really important, and on mine, as I mentioned in the intro, I've noticed I've had to turn my variable motor. I've had to use more power, turn the motor up higher to maintain the same amount of airflow. And so there's restriction in those pipes, and I would gather I'm probably losing 10 or 20% efficiency because of that restriction. And so I want to get that cleaned out. Now, in the past, every few months, I would take a brush, kind of a long brush system, and I would push it through the entire pipe just to get the loose chaff out, turn the fan up on high, and it would just blow out. Most of the chaff is being collected in the chaff collector, by the way, but this is stuff that's gotten past that gets stuck up along the way. So I would just brush that out, but I have not taken the system completely apart, degreased it, and gotten the film and the gunk out of it. Haven't done that before. Really haven't looked forward to it, because even though this is a great, fairly inexpensive vent system that you can buy at the hardware store, it is a pain to adjust and get just right. There is a lot of finagling that goes on with that, and I'm not really looking forward to having to do that, but it's part of the maintenance process. It's got to get done, and so here we go. All right, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to disassemble the vent pipe, and we're going to start by disconnecting the bottom near the coffee roaster, and we're going to basically allow this whole vent to droop down, and then we're going to slide the whole piece out from the outside and pull it in, and then we'll disassemble one piece at a time. The reason we have to do that is this pipe is not a clamp system. When I bought my roaster, I had the opportunity to buy a clamp system, but it was pretty expensive and I didn't have it in my budget. I'm a home roaster, and so I was on a budget, and so I bought this system here, which has worked really well, and we'll get a close look at it while I'm doing the cleaning. But there are 4 or 5 pieces, and they twist together in kind of like a locking system. They lock together. And it's kind of hard to get them on and off. As I had mentioned before, this is B-pipe vent. It's double-walled, and it's rated to be able to come in contact with a piece of wood and not catch on fire. It doesn't get that hot on the outside. As a matter of fact, when my roaster is just about ready to drop, it's at full heat and I'm at 400 and some degrees, I can put my hand on the venting system and I won't burn my hand. It's really a great system. And this double-walled system it's safe to use, and it does snap and lock together. So looking at this piece, first you can see the chaff that's inside. I intentionally didn't clean this out. I wanted you to see how dirty this was. This would have been about the time that I would have brushed out the chaff, and then the system would have just had a really, really skinny film left in there that I just, it would have been like that, and then I would have a few months later, brushed it out again. But it looks really bad now because just in the last few months I've roasted 150 pounds of coffee, and it's a lot of coffee. I had some special holiday stuff that I did. I did something for a nonprofit that caused me to have to roast a lot of coffee. So it's great to be able to use the roaster. Gives me even more experience, but that more use means more maintenance. And so that's why this buildup is here. I wanted you to see it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and brush these out and knock them into the garbage can. And then I'm going to take a solution that I've made, and this is water and simple green. One of the things I noticed as I was scrubbing was that just a regular bowl brush is not enough. This stuff is really caked on. So I let the pieces soak a little bit, and then I used a wire brush, a small handled wire brush. The good news is it worked great, and it got most of my pieces clean, perfectly clean. The bad news is that I didn't have a long enough handle, and so on the longest piece of pipe, the center section didn't get cleaned as well as I wanted it to. So simple lesson, have the right tools, the job is made easier. So I'm going to have to do that the next time. Began the reassembly process. It's really not that hard to do, except I have a perfect angle. It's a little restricted, and if you'll notice, the long piece actually touches, I have a metal frame that goes around the window opening, and it touches it. So I have a very specific angle that I have to be able to make with this and keep. And if it's not just perfect, then it doesn't work. So after some finagling, got it all back together, and the vent system is completely snug and tight. I packed the hole back up at the top. I also supported the pipe that's going out with some strapping to give a little more security so it wouldn't wiggle around as much. I also wanted to make sure that the angle or the pitch of the pipe going out the window pitched downward, so if it did rain, I wouldn't have any moisture come in. This was not a fun job. It was not an easy job, but that's part of the cost of roasting coffee at home and maintaining your equipment. All right, so now that I've got this whole system back together, I've got a few questions for you. If you don't have a drum roasting system, tell me how you're venting your chaff, your smoke with your roaster. Are you doing anything special to be able to reduce the amount of smoke in the house? And how are you managing the chaff and all of that? If you have a system that has some sort of a venting or exhaust system, are you roasting inside and are you venting it outside? If you're doing that, what kind of venting system, what have you been using? And for those who have a drum roaster, you've got a venting system. When was the last time you've cleaned it, and what did you find? I'd be interested in hearing that as well. You know, for those of us who may have kind of like dryer vent tube, you go the inexpensive route and you buy that collapsible dryer vent tube that has these high and low spots all along the way. You need to be really careful about the chaff that collects in there and how close that is to the roaster, potentially it could be a fire. You just need to be very careful with that. As you've seen in my roasting area here, I've got a fire extinguisher. Roaster safety is really important. We don't want to take any shortcuts. You want to make sure that you are venting all of the gases, all the exhaust out away from the roasting area if you're inside. And if you're outside, you don't have anything to worry about. I'd still be interested to hear your comments. Share your thoughts about what you've seen in this video so far today. If you like what you've seen, hit that like button. That really helps me out. And of course, please subscribe. That is the best thing that you can do for this channel, that and hit the like button. And I appreciate you guys being here today. Thank you so much for joining me, and we will see you the next time here at the Virtual Coffee Lab. I hope you have a great week roasting. We'll see you next time.